Wealth is physical objects which promote life. Fuel, food, and the tools to acquire, transport, or protect fuel and food. It can happen that someone can acquire more wealth than they need at the moment and trade some of it for some part of someone else's wealth. Now, you can either do this by simple bartering, trading a thing for a thing, or you can make a piece of paper or clay or metal that says on it, this is worth 1 chicken. Then later, when the person has the chicken, you can give them the money that you've just created and get the chicken. Or you might decide to use it instead for something of equal value to a chicken, say 2 bricks. Or you might give it to someone else for something, and then they can later take it to the person who issued it and get whatever is of that same value. In other words, money permits trading over time and space and is a very important and useful binding force for a culture or civilization. However, it is not wealth. It only stands for wealth. That is what people mean by an economy. Okay? The nom in economy stands for name. So you might say that money is wealth in name only. Now, as long as your economy all use the same money and all agree on its value, everything is fine. Now, here is what can happen with money, both good and bad. I'm going to tell you the story of Henry Ford, very simplified. Henry Ford made a car, a valuable thing, an object of wealth. He sold it for some money. With that money, he made 2 cars and sold them for enough money to make 4 cars and so on. Then he started paying people a little bit of money to make cars faster than he could make them himself. And he was able, therefore, to sell a great deal more and acquire a great deal more money for himself, while still paying people a little to make the cars. Other people imitated this approach and created what are called assembly lines that manufactured, for instance, refrigerators and baby carriages. So there were a lot of refrigerators and baby carriages and cars for people to buy. The people who owned the factories that made them made a great deal of money. The people who worked in them made less, but were still making money. Then everyone who could afford a car, a baby carriage, or a refrigerator had one, and the factories were in danger of shutting down. The workers would be poor and not have enough things, and the owners of the factories would not be making more money, which they found desirable. So they started selling things on time. That is, you could take your refrigerator or car or baby carriage home before you had completely paid for it. This was possible because the people who owned the factories, like Mr. Ford, had so much extra money they could wait to get back the money owed them on the time payment plans. But after a point, even people who could afford time payment plans had everything they needed, and Mr. Ford came up with another revolutionary idea. He paid the workers in his own factory enough money that they could afford to buy cars on time. This too was greatly imitated, and there was a huge boom. Many, many people were working and getting money to buy more and more things, and the more they bought, the more jobs there were for people who also could have more things. And it was a time of great happiness and prosperity. However, there did come a time when everyone who could, even with the new job salaries, afford to buy things had them, and the factories all closed. And the people could not keep up their payments on the things they had, and those things were taken away from them. And this was called, in this country, the Great Depression. We got out of it because the president of the country realized that there were still all those things stored away uselessly, and all those workers starving uselessly. So he simply took things, in this case food, and gave it to the workers to build things that were valuable for the whole country, which they could do because there was all this extra actual wealth, not money, but wealth, physical objects, food, trucks to move people around in, etc. And it was used to make society better, as it can be. So there you have wealth and the economy, and I hope you see the difference between them. Our President Roosevelt did, and was able to get the country moving again. Now, there is a third thing called the supereconomy. And this is where most of the confusion comes in. The relationship between wealth and money is actually pretty clear once it's been stated. But many of our troubles now are caused by the supereconomy, or rather, people's belief in the supereconomy. Super means above, and supereconomy simply means a third layer, pretty distant from the actual physical wealth. The supereconomy is called the money market, the financial market, international economy, Wall Street, the stock market. It's called many names. Basically, it is a series of practices based on the idea that money has value in itself. Basically, the supereconomy trades money. It actually sells money for money sometimes, back and forth. Now, since the supereconomy is based on a fantasy, and therefore bears no actual one-for-one relationship to either wealth or the economy, it is very confusing because the rules, one, make no sense, two, are infinitely changeable. For instance, we have had recently the really fantastic spectacle of companies which made false promises to customers to get money, much of which the people giving it out didn't actually have yet. But they had the idea that by saying they had money, or by betting or offering money they don't yet have, that they were actually buying something. What they were buying turned out to be unbuyable, and they lost a great deal of money. Now, in the super economy world, so did the people who had falsely sold them the false items for the non-existent money. But rather than losing all that money or being sent to jail for taking money from the other people, these people were actually bailed out by the government with money which actually no longer bears any relationship to things, and yet they are able to prosper and buy things with it. How long this can go on, no one knows. Our manufacturers, the people who own the factories, have been moving them to China and India, for instance, in great numbers. Therefore, many people in America do not have jobs, even though many other people have more things than they've ever had. So this is different from the last Great Depression. The super economy allows people to say they are losing money, like factories which shut down here in America and move abroad. They're able to say that they have lost money and therefore not pay taxes, which might help the unemployed here have more things, but actually get assistance from other people's taxes to move their businesses abroad where they make more money than they have ever made before, although, since they're considered poor in this country, they don't have to pay taxes on the money they're making. You can see it's absolutely fantastic, bears no relation to reality. What will happen, of course, is as people get poorer in this country, they will be unable to buy things, so those goods manufactured by cheaper labor in China and India have to be sold somewhere, so they will have to start paying their workers over there enough to buy them, as Mr. Ford did, and in a couple of decades they'll be facing the same kind of depression or recession that we're facing here, which basically is this. remember, there's wealth, which is the real stuff. There's money, or the economy, which is value in name only, but serves to sort of keep score on who owns what real object and where it is. Okay? The super economy, by contrast to the scorekeeping of money, in the super economy, the scorekeepers are running the game. Whatever they say on their scoreboards is taken as true, though it bears no relation to physical reality. In fact, often the things that they say on their completely delusory scoreboard are taken to be so real that people then move real things about in the world, or take things away from people, or give things to people based on this science fiction fantasy scoreboard called the super economy. I hope that's all clear. I just wanted to make it clear to people why they're so confused by things in the hyper economy. It is because they make no logical sense. Okay? I do not know how we will get out of this mess where the hyper economy so rules the lives of so many billions of helpless people. Thank you for listening. If this is of any value to you, I'd love to hear from you. A gentleman on Facebook named Dennis Stork, on hearing an earlier version of this video, compared my wealth, economy, and super economy to the id, ego, and superego of Freudian psychiatry. I think that's very cunning of him, and I would certainly love it if some clever polyglot who knew psychology and sociology and economy could use that analogy to diagnose the mental state of our culture. Thank you very much for listening. I enjoyed making this, and I hope it's clear and useful.